Hello and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rasool, and today we are speaking about personal empowerment and taking back your power. Now, this is a very important topic in relation to gender-based violence because we know and research shows that the basis for using violence is to gain power and control over another person or a group of people. And what happens to that other person and group of people? They become disempowered, they lose their sense of self, and they lose their agency in the process to make any decisions, even after they have left the abusive situation. After the break, we are going to be speaking to therapist and empowerment coach Laetitia Permall about how to take your power back. But before that, we're going to watch a short video about a woman who took her power back. Let's have a look.
This picture is very special to me because it is a literal proof that my scars are the very source of my strength. And being young, black, and female doesn't mean you are any less. In fact, that is the very source of your power. Women should be seen and not heard. You hear words like this as a little girl growing up in northern Nigeria. You want to feel loved and accepted. Even though you are a brilliant little girl, you wear your fears like battle wounds that stop you from seeing the power that lies inside of you. You will learn the injustices women like you must face. And you won't stand for it. You will become a courageous and ambitious woman, believing that anything you set your mind to do is possible. At just 18 years old, you will start the Wadi Ben Hirki Foundation and spark the change you've always wanted to see. But the reason for this small workshop is to make you understand that there are many opportunities that you can access. An example, I was in Thailand last week. Why? Because I saw an opportunity online, I applied. I was the only African there. So if you check the other program, you see some links like scholarships, internships, then job opportunities. So there are many young people that I always send these things to because I want everybody to grow, right? You have to uplift other people. But when everybody, grows, everybody is self-dependent. So share, help each other. If there's nothing that you got out of this short workshop, what I want you to get out of it is collaborate, don't compete. Because trust me, it will go far. And at the end of the day, the sky will be our starting point. Thank you very much. You show them that there are no limitations to what you can achieve as long as you believe in yourself. You will move to the bustling city of Abuja.
Her name is Wadi Ben Hirki. She has this foundation where she helps to advocate for gender equality and girl-child education. That one lawmaker at one time was seen on video saying if you give women opportunities, they'll take over men. Is that the worry? That if you educate women, they now forget their traditional roles of being wife materials?
I would say that wife material thing, I don't know who measures it really, but I would tell girls, don't dim your light to make other people's light shine. Yeah. And anyone who is intimidated, really, you don't need them around you. So I don't know where this fear is coming from, but I think you should get over yourselves. Whoever the man is that is feeling threatened, it's better for you to support us, or else we'll still move forward, really.
So you're here. How did you get here?
So I started my advocacy in northern Nigeria, which is where I come from, and seeing the things that were happening, the Chibok girls being kidnapped, and I thought to myself, it would have been me. So it's important because I'm an advocate for education, and I believe everybody deserves a fighting chance at life.
Let's talk about I know One Campaign is huge. I remember the first time I heard about One Campaign was during the Big Brother Nigeria something. When they said Bisola did something.
Okay, I would say One Campaign, we know it's an international organization. So we just believe in equity and justice. That is it. You'll be a one champion, leading hundreds of young activists to demand presidents and ministers do more to create an equal and just society.
That's amazing. So now let's talk about you. Where are you coming from? Where did you come from till here?
That was a short video about stepping into your personal power. Now we are going to take a short break and we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are speaking about personal empowerment and taking your power back. And with me in studio is registered psychologist and empowerment coach Laetitia Permall. She's also the director of the Center for Student Support Services at the University of the Western Cape, and she is the co-founder of an NPC Kabanga Foundation with her daughter Shanae, and they work with women and youth. Laetitia, if I'm not mistaken, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lenina. It's really a privilege to be here.
So, Laetitia, I'm so excited to get started with our conversation. But before we go into sort of the complexes that, take away our agency, I wanted us to start with a sort of vision or explanation of what empowerment actually looks like. So maybe you can run through, what is the goal that we should be reaching for in terms of agency and empowerment?
Maybe I'd like to start with what it is not.
Okay.
I think we live in a society where the understanding of power is that you either have power over someone or you have power under. So you take position either over someone or under. And that's the kind of mindset that we've assumed is how power plays itself out in society. So where you have felt oppressed, we find the natural inclination in society is for us to want to then get power over the person. With empowerment, it's not power over or taking a position of power under. What empowerment does is it says, I have power within myself. Empowerment is about saying, I'm in the process of becoming stronger. I have more confidence. I have more control of my life, and I'm claiming my right. So it's not power over or under, but it's saying I cannot control that which is around me, but I can control how I respond to it. So it's not a place of arrival. It's a way of being and engaging with life.
I love that. And I think it resonates. I read not too long ago when they talk about sort of, I think, workplace or project teams where they speak about power with. And it's a less hierarchical and sort of more collaborative way of being. But I love that you're speaking about sort of power within myself. And there seems to be an emphasis on responding to situations. So we aren't able to control situations outside of us, external situations, what may happen, but we can choose, or we have power to respond to them appropriately. So, okay, which sort of takes me into my second question. So when we're understanding what power is and what personal power is, we have power within ourselves to respond. One of the reasons we're having this is because we spoke, previously around, let's say, gender-based violence or abusive situations. And what often emerges after that, not even while someone is within the situation, is that they tend to lose agency, or they tend to lose that power within themselves. And I want to say, I've been thinking about how that might manifest. It might manifest in an inability to make decisions or an inability to respond appropriately. But maybe you can give us then now an idea of sort of what could that look like? How can people recognize if they're holding sort of a victim mentality or their agency is gone?
So I firstly want to say it's very natural for us to respond to any kind of trauma from a perspective that, how could this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? So I think we are human. And I think our automatic first response is, this is unfair. How could this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? I think where very often things go wrong is when we internalize it and we say, what is wrong with me? Why did I attract this? Why did I make this happen? So I find that's a narrative that I find often happens where we are not able to see the perpetrator or see the situation for what it is. Women have a tendency to internalize it and say, what did I do? What did I do to attract this, to make this person do this to me? And that is also okay if it's part of a process and we find ourselves shifting along that as part of our healing journey. But very often we get stuck there. We get stuck. And that is where we become disempowered. When we have a belief that I'm helpless, I can do absolutely nothing, I start going into a cycle of self-pity, and where I feel I am completely helpless and the world, everything is doing this to me. So where there's that mindset of there's nothing I can do, everyone is doing. And so you find, what I found very interesting is that even though it plays itself out in our closest relationships, I have found that a victim mindset often plays itself out in more than one area in our lives. So you will find in the relationship closest to us, that is where it gets amplified. But as women, I find that if we step back, and that is what I've had to do, for most of my life, I've actually had a victim mindset because I believe that when I experienced oppression and abuse, I believed that it was being done to me. And so for a long time, I thought there was nothing I could do. And I'm grateful that through my own experience, I've been able to step back and look at what are the recurring patterns in my life. And then I realized that when I look at my mother, I look at my grandmother, I find these intergenerational patterns. So that's the first thing. And then when I look at other areas of my life, I found, wow, in my workplace, in my family, I find that there are common theme emerges. And so for me, when a woman wants to take a decision, the first thing is just becoming aware that this is how you are operating. Life is happening to me. And then you can pause and say, no, I'm not a victim. I can choose to respond. And that's where the empowerment, and that is that first shift. You speak about agency. Agency starts inside. It starts with a mental shift. It starts with a shift in the heart. It says, I'm worthy of more. I deserve more. And so the shift isn't necessarily firstly a tangible action that we take, that people can see. It's like a plant. You plant the seed and it's under the earth where no one can see what's happening. That's where the germination starts. That's where the seeds start growing. And I want to offer women that just becoming aware is our first step towards agency and shifting that mindset.
I really love that. And I love that you mentioned that it's not sort of a tangible shift. So not something physical that we can see, but it doesn't mean that the shift isn't happening. It means that it's sort of, shifting inside ourselves. I want to ask Laetitia about, before the show when you and I were speaking about, you also spoke about sort of systems, and systemic ways that agency is taken away from women. And often on the Women's Show, we speak about those things. I mean, I think the easy example to give is in a situation, as you said, a personal relationship or domestic violence. But we also know that from a systemic perspective, women would or could get paid less than men for doing the same job, which directly relates to I'm unworthy of getting paid the same or not able to do the same thing. Um, I read an interesting study the other day that said, why women and girls lag behind in STEM is because girls generally are given less freedom to explore than boys are, because there's an added sort of safety issue when it comes to girls and letting them out of the house. So it's interesting, these sorts of ways. Can you tell us a bit more about that? And you did mention intergenerational patterns. So I'm assuming you also mean we are influenced by the way we've seen our mothers and our grandmothers and other and aunties and women in our community sort of respond to challenges.
Mm. So, so what I'm finding quite interesting, and I'm glad you're referring to, you know, um, when I was studying my honors, I remember something that stays with me for some reason, is that when we talk about systems, we often talk about um, political systems, institutions like workplace, where there's gender inequality, and you look at all these external systems. What has been very hard for me to accept is that in society, a lot of research shows that the family is the most violent system in society, and that is something that stays with me. So yes, there's a lot of focus on what is seen, and so I think when I look at why is it that the family is perceived as the most violent system, we are afraid of the violence that happens on our streets. We are afraid of the acts of violence towards women outside of the home, but very often there's a lot that happens within the home that people are unaware of. And so, as you say, where does that come from? I think on the one hand, we have inherited a system, a cultural set of beliefs that says a woman needs to act in a certain way, a woman needs to take up a certain position in the family, a woman has a particular role that she is expected to fulfill, and that is informed by religion, it is informed by the cultural beliefs that we hold. And so on the one hand, there's the beliefs that we've inherited from, as you say, from our families, from our communities, and from our cultures. On the other hand, and this is something that I'm exploring more, is that when you look at South Africa and the apartheid system and the system of struggle, that's something that I'm looking at more in depth. And I'm asking myself, to what extent have we, as people of color, colored, black, how have we internalized this struggle mindset? So the struggle mindset and the victim mindset are almost cousins for me, right? And it's like we become so caught up in this mindset that it has to be a struggle. My mom is 86, God bless her. But I listen to my mom and she still has this belief that 'n huis is nie 'n huis sonder 'n huis moet 'n kruis hê. There's this belief that if a household doesn't have problems, then it's not really a household, you know? And you see how those beliefs get perpetuated from one generation to another, where it's a belief that if you're not struggling, you're not living. And so as women, when life is good and we are happy, I often hear people say, "Oh, I'm laughing too much. I wonder what's going to go wrong." So there's a mindset, there's an expectation that you cannot be happy all the time. You cannot experience joy in life. That if something is good, something bad will follow. So can you see how just that mindset, that belief plays itself then out in our relationships, at work, and all those things, because it's been handed down for us. And I often say, I have two daughters, and I say, People can give us gifts. We don't have to receive everything. So just like you have gifts that get sent back, I think we need to be more aware of when people share something, advice in the best possible intention. We don't have to receive it as truth. We need to discern, step back and say, is this true for me? And I will choose whether I'm going to receive it or not.
Laetitia, I love that you sort of brought that up and you were looking at the struggle mindset. I must tell you and the viewers that I read a Facebook post the other day by a woman who said, she encouraged us to let it be easy. She was speaking about work and she was saying, we are sort of addicted to it being hard. And if it's not hard or difficult, it doesn't count. But why don't you give yourself permission for it to be easy? And still be valid and worth it and your gift to the world in terms of the way that you're doing it. So I absolutely love that you brought that up. I'm also going to ask you though, so there's a larger narrative, and I think it's about the struggle narrative that is happening for women. I see it a lot sort of for Black women, especially across the world. And we see it come up in posts, in media in the States, and that is the strong Black woman, right? And to be a strong Black woman, you must have gone through, or you must almost, it's like you say, you must be struggling. And this also feeds into how busy you are. There's self-care, but we're not really doing it. It's almost like a badge of honor that we've got so much going on at the same time. I'm loath to say a little bit of competition, but we do sort of, we almost brag about it. This day was so hectic. Kids, food, etc., etc. Have you come across, I think, just that this how the strong Black woman narrative is problematic?
Yes. One of the things that I've come to appreciate is making the shift that vulnerability is actually our strength. Because, again, what we've come to believe is, women are strong. It's like a tea bag. You put it in hot water. So all of these things that we are given from society, all these messages, subtle messages that we are given, is that we need to hold ourselves. And when we do this, you can see there's something about strength. There's a guardedness. So when you think about the strength that you identify, I think where we've gotten it wrong as women is that we arm ourselves, and I think there's a natural fight-flight response from the brain that when we feel unsafe, we need to guard ourselves. But what ends up happening is, Lenina, is that when we arm ourselves, we actually in protection all the time. It's like you're holding yourself, you're on guard, you're hyper vigilant, you're constantly expecting something wrong to happen. And I find that why we need to shift that strong Black woman syndrome, I call it that, because it's confused with confidence. It's confused with being empowered. Being empowered and being confident doesn't mean that you cannot be vulnerable. Vulnerability is actually strength. Vulnerability means I am able to acknowledge that I'm not okay. I'm able to acknowledge that I'm not confident, that I feel that I'm not enough. And while I acknowledge that there are areas that I'm constantly needing to work on, I'm still willing to step forward and say, I'm going to participate in life. Imperfectly perfect, I'm stepping forward, because I find what happens with this, if you look at my body and it's like I'm strong, you can see how my posture changes. And what happens is the body holds score. And so I have found in my experience, I've had problems with my shoulders, I've had problems with my spine, constantly in pain. So what happens is our bodies actually give us an indication. So if we want to know being strong and standing up for ourselves, I think, yes, we should. We have a right to do that. And When we find that our bodies are not healthy and we are feeling overwhelmed and we're feeling anxious, our bodies are a strong communicator. Let's see what is happening. And if we are out of balance, if we are not feeling well, we are perpetually ill, these are signs for us that we've misunderstood the strength, that we got on our armor, we are guarded, and that we are not at ease and being imperfect and still engaging in life.
Laetitia, I love that you brought that in and also brought in sort of the physical body as part of this process, because a lot of us, and I find especially women, and I think, I often think that that's intergenerational. I think that we have had to bear a lot of things. A lot of women speak out about their uh, grandmothers and their mothers and the conditions and circumstances that they have to work under, that they had to be married under without complaining. It's almost, it's almost as if that's also inherited, is the way I'm seeing it in my life. Don't complain, just go ahead and do it and get through it. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are speaking about personal empowerment and taking back your power. And with us in studio is Laetitia Permall, who is a registered psychologist and an empowerment coach. Laetitia, before the break, we were speaking about the strong Black woman narrative and how that can be problematic. And one of the things that you said is, in vulnerability can be a strength. Being able to say I am not okay is also a strength. I just wanted to tag onto that. I wanted to ask you about safety. So one of the things I think that a lot of women are afraid of in terms of being vulnerable is that to say that is not safe, or the world is not a safe place for our vulnerability. And that could be directly related to the fact that people expect us to just take it. And you also spoke about the family system being the most violent system. Often it is within our own families where people are telling us to just buck up, get over it. This is not important. How important is it to find a safe space to be vulnerable?
So I think one of the things I've come to realize, I first want to say this. When you look at the continuum of strength and vulnerability, I want to say it's not either you're strong or you are vulnerable. Okay? It's I'm strong and I'm vulnerable. It's about connecting and putting those two together. And that helps us to present in a very different way. Okay, so it's not either or. So when one thinks of this whole paradigm of strength, I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, can I be vulnerable just with myself? So very often we think the first thing we need to do is to go and find someone or find a group, right? And I've come to realize that the first thing we need to do is start with ourselves and admit you cannot conquer what you don't confront. So the first thing I would say to any woman is to say, can I be vulnerable with myself? Can I at least come to a point where I am no longer in denial about what my life is, what I'm experiencing? Because I think when we're in denial, we don't even acknowledge. We want to make the world believe everything is okay. And we have this facade, we wear this mask, and everyone thinks it's okay. So the first thing, I think, the first step to being vulnerable and feeling safe is feel safe with yourself. And then, once you've done that, you look around you and you ask yourself, is there one person I can trust? Just one. And very often you find that person may not be a family member. It may be a complete stranger. It may be that we're able to pick up a phone. We have our plans, we are able to pick up the phone and we're able to just say to someone, I'm not okay. What can I do? And so you find there isn't, everyone has to start with, where am I? Some people are at a place where they're not even aware. And so if that's where you are right now, invite awareness into your life. Do an assessment of yourself. Where am I now? If it is that you already in therapy or you're speaking about it, then we are all at different places in our lives. And I often say, as women, we are always going to find a woman ahead of us, not better than us, but a woman who's walked this path and who's come further along. And then when we look to the other end, we're always going to find women who are not where we are yet. And so you look this way and you look that way. There are always women on either side of us. There are women behind us, in front of us, and on our side. And so when you look at that reality, I want to say we are not alone. And as women, we've been wired for connection. You know, our heart yearns for connection. And so feel safe with yourself. And then find your tribe. Very often we think, but there's no one in my family I can trust. There's no one in my friendship circle. And I'm telling you, I have found the most incredible women whom I've been able to find a safe space with, not necessarily in the family, not in the workplace, but women out there who are, and there are organizations who are saying, come on, let us create a safe space. So I would say, find what works best for you. Find what you define as safe. My experience or my definition of safety may not be the same for you, Lenina, because we are so unique and we've all had such unique circumstances and experiences. So I'd say, what feels safe for you? Who feels safe for you? And with that, take the first steps, because once we are connected with someone else, we actually come to realize there's a witnessing that takes place, and we say, I don't want you to do anything. And I think that's a mistake we often make. We think when someone shares their trauma, we must do something. And I have found that compassion is probably the most powerful thing you can offer yourself and that you can offer someone else. What is compassion? That space where you just say, I'm here with you. I'm witnessing. I'm here. I'm present, fully present. And that creates safety.
I really love that. And I think what jumped out at me was also just finding safety within yourself, because often we are our harshest critics. That's also the other thing. And often it's our harsh critic that prevents us from reaching out to other people. I want to ask, I didn't plan to ask this question, Laetitia, but I want to ask it. And often when we're speaking about mental health or emotional health, I always want to say, on the topic of safety, it's important, as you said, to find safety within yourself and then just identify even one person. Sometimes we identify the wrong person. And so, the negativity gets validated as opposed to the positivity. And what I often like to say is that, again, it's not a linear process. We're going to reach out to somebody and that person's going to, sort of affirm or listen or offer compassion. And maybe even in the midst of all of that, we might misconstrue certain things and then reach out to the wrong person or get advice that we don't want. How can what if someone reaches out to somebody and they don't get an adequate or even positive response? What would you suggest that they do sort of how can they emotionally manage that?
Okay. So I want to come back to what I said right when we started. I said being empowered means that you become stronger, you're more confident, you're more in control, and you claim your rights. So I think there's probably not a single person who can say that they've trusted someone who eroded or broke their trust, right? So I think we are human. And very often people present themselves in a way where we believe that we can trust them enough to share something really personal. and then it backfires. Either we get judged for it, or they share it with someone else. And what I've come to learn for myself is that's where the compassion comes in. We need to forgive ourselves for trusting the wrong people, because the mistake we often make is that if we've stepped forward in trust and we've shared someone with something and it's backfired, we automatically retreat back and say, I can't trust anyone. We make a blanket rule for everyone in the world and say no one can be trusted. So it's about acknowledging to ourselves that this person can be trusted. There are people in life who cannot be trusted. And what else can I do? Whom else can I consider so that I feel safe? You understand? So it's about, there's an element of risk. We're always going to, every single day when we wake up and we engage, we are taking a risk. But can you imagine if we live a life where we're not willing to risk anything, then we're going to end up existing. And I think that has been, when I think about my own life, it's been trial and error. It's been trusting people, having your trust broken, trying again, trying again, trying again. And the journey doesn't end. I'm still in the process of becoming. I'm still in the process of, sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. But I've realized that no matter what comes back, you cannot control other people. All you can control is, what do I believe I'm worthy of having, you know? And it's like, but I need to have someone witness my story. I need to find a place. And so I want to say, keep looking, keep looking. There are amazing organizations, you know. If you're in a position where you are able to access a mental health facility through your clinics, through your doctor, start somewhere. Start in a space where you feel this is someone I can trust. And then you take it from there. And there are amazing organizations in the Western Cape where there are women who have come together to create these safe spaces, because we realize that trust and safety are just so linked. You cannot separate the two. And so if you've had a trauma where your trust has been eroded and where you no longer feel safe, have compassion for yourself and keep looking, keep looking. There are support systems out there.
I love what you're saying about empowerment being sort of a journey and that there's no end point, which is also what you said when we started the conversation. And so it's a journey of trial and error. And sometimes you're going to make it, and sometimes you're not going to make it, and sometimes you're going to trust people and have that trust broken, but you need to keep going. And your agency is, how do you respond to that? I also just want to say, in terms of finding places of safety, I've often said on the show, you know, I have a cousin in Johannesburg, and she said to me one day, oh, I've gone for counseling at Lifeline. They give 4 free sessions. And so I signed up for Lifeline for my 4 free sessions of counseling, and I would go every year just for sort of maintenance. There is just so much safety in speaking to somebody that doesn't know you or your situation, cannot judge, cannot give you advice based on any of your past sort of issues. And for me, that was really powerful. Laetitia, I also want to ask you, so, you know, so women are finding themselves in this space. You know, they've been through a trauma, they've been through, they're struggling with their mental health, they're struggling sort of to find agency or to shift out. What are small, tangible ways that we can shift out of that? And just for context, the way I imagined it often is like, what does it feel like to have no agency? And even the way I've experienced it is sort of fear of making any decisions. So really struggle. That would filter down to struggling with day-to-day decisions. Again, you know, just a feeling of, because the world feels unsafe, as you said, a blanket statement, sort of just can't shift out of there. And so are there, sorry, I'm just going to say, in the movies, what it looks like And this is often the thing. Someone makes a big decision and all of a sudden they're all fired up and they're, doing what they need to do every day and staying late and all of this stuff. Changing is not really about that. What we found is that possibly it's in the little bits of smaller decisions that we make every day. Is that accurate? And can you tell us more about sort of what we can do to start shifting?
I want to agree with you 100%. There's something that I heard once and it stays with me. We should not compare our inside with someone else's outside. So I want to start off by saying that. Because very often from the outside, it looks like everyone has it all together. But we're comparing our inside, our anxiety, our overwhelm, our sense of feeling unsafe. And we have this perception that we're alone in it. And so I think one of the first things we can do is to acknowledge that, one, make a commitment today, even if you've not been able to do this before. Start today. Now is the only presence, is the only time that you have on every single given day. So the first thing I would say is, are you willing to commit to doing something for yourself today? That's the first one, commitment. Then, as you say about compassion, is actually not an emotion. Compassion is a daily practice. What do I mean by that? It's waking up in the morning and saying, I didn't get it right yesterday, but today I am going to judge myself less. I'm going to make a choice that I'm going to try again. So compassion is that absolute daily practice of recognizing and accepting that I'm worthy of being better for myself. Then, of course, we speak about the small daily practices. What could that look like? It's as simple as realizing when you choose what to eat. I found as women, one of the ways that we cope is by eating. We eat whatever we want to eat because it makes us feel better about ourselves. So I've come to realize a very simple thing that we can do is choosing what we put into our bodies. It's a gift we're giving ourselves. And it's like, sure, how can I start by choosing what I put into my body? How can I start by a simple thing like drinking more water? So it starts with self. What is it that I give? The other thing that I find is really important is the people they say we are the sum of the 5 people whom we engage with the most. So if you find that you are around people who are very negative and you are in toxic relationships, small daily practice, start becoming aware of who the people are who makes you feel better about yourself, who are the people who make you feel worse about yourself. Start mixing with people who make you feel, who acknowledges you as an equal, right? A simple thing like taking a walk alone, making yourself a cup of tea or coffee and not be busy multitasking while you're doing it, but literally giving yourself a few minutes to sit down with that cup of coffee or tea and just enjoying it mindfully. So it's not the big, as you say, it's not those big things. It's those little things. I say every drop makes an ocean. And if you don't get it right today, you try again tomorrow. So for me, it's commitment. And then making those little things every day. Having a bath with candles. If you don't have a bath, just become aware of what the water feels like when you wash yourself. What does the soap smell like? Putting lotion on your hands. Our senses. I found that our senses are one of the greatest gifts we have. So I would sit in a meeting and I'd become aware of sounds. So can I tune into a sound that I haven't listened to before? Can I tune into a smell that I haven't smelled? So instead of having coffee, you smell the coffee. And it sounds like silly little things, but there's neuroscience research that has shown that just when we engage in life with all our senses, it actually shifts our physical health, and it shifts our mental well-being. So these small little things that we do, and then of course, we need to find people to connect with. We need to find someone, whether it's a group, whether it's one other person. But I find that if we make a commitment to ourselves and we have someone that can hold us accountable, I found that that is a powerful space for women to create, to say, I've committed to eating better. I've committed to being less judgmental. Can we get together once a week or once every second week and just share how we are doing and hold each other accountable? So for me, it's starting with yourself and then finding the right people around you to support you on that journey.
I love that so much, Laetitia. I mean, I have to say, you know, what I've taken out of that wonderful, that wonderful answer really is that, you know, agency is really about choice. And what you're saying is like starting with really, really small choices, you know, to show you that you have, even if it's like just a little bit of power, as a human being with senses, we are inherently powerful because we can choose, like you said, even just what to eat, even just to go for a walk, to take a step outside. And so starting with little choices and then letting that gain momentum. And we're going to have to speak about momentum at another time because we are out of time. Laetitia, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing.
You're welcome.
We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we've been speaking about personal empowerment and taking your power back. Now, we are almost at the end of our hour together, but before we go, we're going to play another video looking at what it takes to step into your personal power. Let's have a look.
I want to assure you that you will make your family and loved ones proud, but above all, you will make yourself proud.
Vividly, I can remember, definitely. You were already in the hospital.
I was in the labor room.
In the labor room. I think she was 7 months?
Yeah, the pregnancy was 7 months.
The pregnancy was just 7 months.
And another thing, I think I've told you,
Yes.
the kids.
Out of six,
Yes,
six.
yeah,
She was the
I know
only
that.
survivor.
Yeah, she was the only one that survived.
All 5
Six.
died in that
Yes.
hospital.
What?
Who survived?
I've been a fighter.
We prayed one prayer. We said, God, if you will give us children.
And God answered that prayer.
So we never cared about male child or female.
No.
And any
was never
child
an
we
issue.
got, we took them as blessings from God. There were comments that started coming in, you know, for wasting much money
On my
the
daughters.
daughters.
Yes, yes.
That's as in school training. Yes. I said, you know what? Wherever your brains could take you, whatever school that your brains could take you, those were the schools you would go to. I would rather move in rags and spend every kobo on your training. What else can
It's
you do?
always good to give. They say the hand of the giver is always on top
Yeah.
Yes.
of whoever is receiving.
And
So
it is more blessed
It's
to
more
give
blessed to give
than to
than
receive
to receive.
anyway.
Yes.
You will create opportunities for young girls and women by supporting them with scholarships, food and shelter, and by teaching them the skills and tools to achieve this for themselves. Kuma mu yan uwa ne, mu daga wuri daya ne, kuma abubuwan da suka faru ba da son mu bane. Amma mun gode Allah muna da rai. An ce akwai rai akwai lafiya ko kuma ba mu san me gobe ba. Allah zai iya ya bude hanya ma wa'yansu mu zama shugaban kasa. Kun yadda? So I don't want you to give up. Believe that you become something in future. Akwai wa'yansu da suna makaranta ne? Akwai mata a makaranta?
Muna so adult education din mama mama. Okay. Muna so.
So Abin da za mu faɗa akwai waɗansu volunteers da suna zo ba a biyan mu amma muna koyar da mutane ba kowane rana ba amma muna zuwa wurare amma za mu iya mu yi ta zuwa ko so biyu ko so ɗaya a sati mu yi ta koyar muku da turanci. You will fight every day against poverty, illiteracy, and child marriage because you believe that none of us are equal until all of us are equal. And so you must continue to push harder than any other person in the room. Despite all the life throws at you, you will finally get to see that you are beautiful, you are special, and you matter. And you will help create a world where every girl knows that she matters too. Yours in power, Wadi Ben Hirki.
That was an inspiring video about the amazing things that can happen when you step into your power. And that brings us to the end of the show. Remember, if you are struggling to find a sense of self or a sense of agency, it is not the big sweeping decisions that make the difference. It is the little ones that you make every day that push you back towards yourself. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lenina Rasool. Goodbye.